If you've ever watched WALL-E and wondered why this one little robot is the only one to survive after the humans abandon the Earth, stay tuned because I believe I've found the answer.
Danny J. Man in the spotlight gleam, talking magic worlds and Marvel dreams.
At the beginning of WALL-E, we see a world that is destroyed. Sandstorms rage, piles of garbage are stacked higher than skyscrapers, and the remains of the machines that were left behind to clean it all up are strewn all over this place. The only movement we see is this one little cockroach and the last remaining machine, a little WALL-E device. But why is he the only one that remains? Why is the WALL-E that we know the only one to survive these 700 years since the humans have left? Well, the answer to that kind of depends on whether you subscribe to the Pixar Theory. But whether you do or not, I'm going to give you two possible answers, two reasons why this is the case. One for those who know the Pixar Theory and do subscribe to it, and an explanation that also adequately defines why he was the one to survive that does not use the Pixar Theory. So first off, the Pixar Theory reason. So for those who don't know, the Pixar Theory is the idea that all Pixar movies are combined, they're linked through time and or space in one giant universe. So every Pixar film, from Toy Story to Brave to WALL-E and everything in between, they're all connected. They're just happening at different times and different places. I'm not going to go into all the details on how all the movies are connected in this video, but the important thing for the sake of this idea is that in Toy Story and some of the other films, but we see that life and sentience can come out of humans. The energy needed for sentient life can come out of humans. For Toy Story, it's out of their imagination. And for some other versions, like Monsters, Inc., we see it comes out of their joy and their pain and their fear. And so we see that humans can give what is needed to inanimate objects. Now, this ability to give sentience is not something that they do voluntarily. It's not something that they choose the target. This is something that just kind of happens. Anything that they see as having some sort of a life to it, whether it actually does or not, inherits that life. And that happens with toys, but that can also happen with machines. WALL-E moves around with things that look like arms. It has things that look like eyes on its head. It looks humanoid. And so these WALL-E machines, when they're being built, when the humans are still there on the planet, they would inherit some of that sentience because the imagination of the humans, they see it as humanoid. And so their imaginations will instill that life force into these WALL-E machines. So that means the WALL-E we see is not the only one who gets this sentience. A lot of the WALL-Es would. Now, all these machines still get energy from whatever energy sources they have before, whether it's solar panels, gas, however they are getting around, they have their energy sources. But they're also gaining that sentience from humans. The thing is, we know that 700 years before the events of WALL-E, the humans left Earth. The place was a mess, and so they took off into the sky. And they left the robots behind to clean up the mess. Now, these robots would be built in a way that they could refuel themselves, they could charge themselves back up, and they can continue that work. But I think the humans would not fully realize that these robots would not be able to take care of themselves as completely as they had when the humans were around. As time progresses, the longer these robots go separated from humans, the less sentient and the more robot they become. The result is all the WALL-Es, all the robots would eventually go back to just being robots, just fulfilling their tasks. And eventually the sandstorms would mess with their gears and they would wear down and stop working. But that brings up the question of, if the humans going away causes that sentience to also disappear, why did our WALL-E last sentient for 700 years? And that's because WALL-E, the WALL-E we know, is different. We see that he is obsessed with humans. He researches them. He watches movies to study how they move, how they act, how they live. He essentially tries to replicate their lifestyle. He tries to be human. The result is that WALL-E himself is not just a product of imagination. His sentience came with such an abundance of imagination itself that he becomes a life spring of that energy himself. And while all the other machines slowly wore out, Wall-E became the first to be self-sufficient in that life force. It allows him to not rely on the humans that are now gone. He can rely on his own love of the humans to keep himself going. And we can see that that life force is not restricted to him. It's contagious. We see as he passes other robots, they slowly snap out of their defined roles and do things that they hadn't tried before. Merely passing by one robot, a robot that his job is just to type on a keyboard, he waves to it, and it tries waving itself. He inspires Mo to jump off of his assigned lines and to start moving about on his own to clean up the mess elsewhere, other than where he's defined. Each robot that he interacts with, he inspires them to try things outside of their defined programming. He is giving that sentience to these other robots. And that shows the power that he has in his own imagination, in his own courage. He is able to give out that life force that we see the humans giving out. And because of this abundance within him, he's able to keep not just himself alive, he's able to be this new next stage in the robotics evolution, where the robots can then take care of themselves without the need of the humans. Now that's all well and good, but if you don't subscribe to the Pixar Theory, or if you just didn't like that way of thinking about it, you can also find a way to explain Wall-E's survival without the Pixar Theory. If you just view this as a standalone movie, and you're just asking, how did this one robot survive? Well, we can also answer that looking once again at his curiosity and his love of humans. Like we said, he is obsessed with humans. He watches movies about them. He learns about them. And in the course of researching humans, he learns to do more than his programming. The Wall-E robots are designed that they scoop up trash, create it into these little blocks of garbage, and to stack it up. That's what they were built for. But we see this Wall-E doing so much more. And in particular, we see that he protects himself. He takes care of himself. Something he would learn when he's studying the humans is that it's not just enough to perform your task. There are sandstorms raging. They may not have been programmed to know how to handle these sandstorms. But Wall-E figured out that these things are damaging to him. Well, what do humans do when there are threats outside? They build a house. They find a home to live in to protect them. And so he finds a place to call a home, and he lives in there, and he identifies when these storms are coming and retreats to protect himself. Now, these sandstorms would be incredibly damaging to these robots, but Wall-E takes care of himself. And he wouldn't just learn that it's important to protect himself, he would also learn how to repair himself. Watching the humans, watching how they work, how they function, he'd find out how they handle the machines. He would see videos of humans working on different devices. He might even find a manual that shows how they built the Wall-E machines themselves. And in this knowledge, he now knows that it's not enough just to keep himself from breaking down. As time goes on, he's not going to be able to prevent that. So instead, he learns how to repair himself. And we see this. He's traveling along and he sees a fallen Wall-E unit with really nice treads. And so he collects those and he uses them himself. He takes them off of the fallen robots before and he uses it to repair himself to keep himself in pristine condition. So while all the other robots needed to just last as long as they could, Wall-E doesn't have to worry about that. It's not a matter of trying not to break down. It's a matter of repairing himself when something does break down. And this allows him not just to last a while, he can last forever as long as he can constantly be repairing the parts that are breaking. But it goes beyond just mere repair. I believe we actually see that Wall-E is enhancing himself. His little music device on his chest, it looks different than the rest of his body around it. And it doesn't just look different, it also serves no functional purpose for his assigned job. His job is to collect trash, to put into little cubes, and to stack them. Why is music important to that? It's not. So I think because of how it looks different than the rest of his body, and the fact that it doesn't serve a purpose, I believe that he had installed that on himself. He built that as a way to keep himself moving. And he knew it wasn't just a matter of keeping himself functioning. He needed to keep himself motivated. And he did that by installing new tech into his body. And who knows what other new tech he has put into himself. Maybe his ability to wheel over more jagged terrain is something that he enhanced. Maybe that laser he shoots out of his head is something that he added in when he realized some of the trash pieces were too big. Whatever it was, he has not only learned to protect himself, to repair himself, but to enhance himself. And this knowledge that he's acquired by studying humans, that has allowed him to survive for 700 years. And the other robots just did not have that fascination with humans. They did not learn like WALL-E learned. So whether you follow the Pixar theory or not, it was WALL-E's imagination and his curiosity that led him to be able to survive these 700 years since the humans left, while the rest of the robots all kind of died out. So what do you think about this theory? I feel like this is more than a theory. I feel like the evidence right there. If you have any other theories that you would like to share about Disney, Pixar, Harry Potter, anything, feel free to leave those in the comments below. I love hearing different theories. And if you have any questions on anything from any other movies that you'd like me to look into, let me know that in the comments down below as well. I'd love to try and research that and see if I can find answers for you. And if you'd like to see how the movie Wish launched a Disney multiverse, click this video right here. And as always, thank you for watching.
Click subscribe, dive deep into the lore. J-Man have the answers you adore.